Raewyn Bleakley has been named the new CEO of the New Zealand Food and Grocery Council after Katherine Rich announced her resignation in August. It's a big job and a pivotal year for food and grocery. Raewyn joins me now. And Raewyn, what attracted you to this job, which has its contentious elements?
It certainly does have contentious elements, and I guess there were a number of factors that attracted me to the role. I was actually approached to be asked if I was interested in putting my name forward to the board, and it didn't take me long to say yes to that. My background is a bit mixed. I have had many years in trade associations, about 16 years prior to going into the public service, and I think all of those experiences have given me a unique skill set that make this role really attractive and something I can get my teeth into. So I was really flattered to be approached to take over from Katherine, and really delighted to be appointed into the role. So I'm really excited about the future, but there's a lot of hard work to be done.
Indeed, indeed. I think I read that you were the Deputy CEO, one of the Deputy CEOs in the fire service, so you're used to being in the public eye in a slightly contentious role, I think.
Indeed, yes, I came from Fire and Emergency. I was also at Waka Kotahi prior to that, and had been the Chief Executive at the Chamber of Commerce at Wellington, so lots of public-facing roles, I guess, in amongst all of those.
Right. Now, tell us about the organisation that you found. You've only been in the job a few weeks, but what organisation have you found when you got your feet under the desk there?
Sure, well, I'm in my third week at the moment, so it's still early days, and I guess what's really struck me is how passionate the people that produce the products that you see on your supermarket shelves are, how keen they are to work for positive change, how welcoming they are, and that's a really wonderful environment to be walking into. Katherine has done a fantastic job with the support of the members and the board to get the council to the position where the government have responded positively to the concerns they've been raising for many years, and we've seen that through the grocery market study and the ComCom's recommendations, and then the swift response from government to plot out what they're going to do in response to that, and that's set up a great platform for the future, and obviously that's top of mind for many of the members that I'm speaking to in the early days.
And what is Katherine's legacy, do you think?
Well, I think Katherine's legacy is that she took a very considered and patient approach, but was very determined to make sure that in the end the government had to listen to the concerns of suppliers about the duopoly and the difficulties that posed for them in providing competitive prices to consumers, to everyday New Zealanders. And so it was very important for the council to make that case, and they did it very well, but it did take a long time. And that's really the legacy that Katherine has left, that the government has responded, and we're now into the implementation of the response to that. And I guess the other area that's a big focus is the sustainability area, and there's been a lot of work that's been underway, and there's a lot more to do in that area as well to make sure that we're all contributing to great outcomes for the planet, which is such an important concern for many people at the moment.
Katherine had name recognition from her role in politics, and I think maybe that helped her a little bit. It might have even helped her open doors in Parliament, I'm not sure. What do you say about your own prospects in that regard?
Sure, yes, and Katherine did certainly have a profile going in, and I'm a different person to Katherine and have had a different background. I am familiar with getting those doors open in Parliament from the other roles I've had representing different industries, from my time back at the Hospitality Association, at Bus and Coach and Rental Vehicle Associations, and then at the Chamber of Commerce. And I've always found that when you have the support of an industry behind you as a strong membership-based organisation, it's actually very hard for ministers not to take that seriously. If you've got evidence behind what you're putting in front of them, I've always found them very willing to engage and listen. So it's not just your name or your profile, I think, that gets you through the door. It's very much about what you're wanting to discuss with them and the benefits that brings to good policy outcomes for everybody.
And what's your schedule for meeting suppliers? Are you doing meetings up and down the country? Obviously, you've got your conference coming up. How are you going to get out and meet them?
Yes, look, I'm working on that schedule at the moment, but it has been quite busy the first couple of weeks. We had a great meeting with Minister Clark, and I've also prioritised meeting with officials from the likes of MB and Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, because they're very important to our members as well. I've met with a number of members already in various ways. We had a great small medium enterprise working committee meeting yesterday, where I met with a lot of members from that sector, and we talked about the grocery code and what that's going to mean for them. So there's various ways of engaging with members en masse, and obviously the conference that we have in early November brings a couple of hundred into close proximity, so that'll be a fantastic opportunity for me to meet with them face to face early on in my time at the council.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the Code of Conduct and the Grocery Commissioner? Where are things at with these initiatives?
So there's quite a lot of work underway, as I say, by the officials at MB to develop the code. There was a period of consultation which finished in August, and I know they've been very busy looking at the submissions they've received on that, and then making decisions or formulating advice, I guess, for Minister to consider in terms of the next steps. There's a piece of legislation that needs to underpin the Commissioner as well, so that's well advanced, and we'll be watching that carefully. And we're expecting to get a good update from Paul Stocks, who's a Deputy Chief Executive at MB, who's speaking at our conference, and I know our members will be really keen to hear what he has to say about the progress. We know the government is taking this very seriously. We've heard a number of statements made from the government about the level of unfair profits, being around $1 million a day, being taken out of everyday New Zealanders' pockets, and not going where they could be going in terms of saving people money on their groceries. So we're really confident that the government is committed to continuing with the pace that they've set on this change program.
Right. Do you have confidence that the Food and Grocery Council and its members have had enough input into creating the legislation and these offices?
Well, look, it's early days in seeing what the legislation looks like, because that hasn't come out as an exposure draft or gone through any of the processes that it needs to via first reading, etc., to go to being a bill, and then moved into an act. So there's plenty more time for input into that, but my experience is the earlier you get in to have that input, the more effect it has, and we're certainly taking the opportunities that we can to have those conversations with MB officials and the likes of Paul Stocks and, of course, the Minister on a regular basis as we move through this process. So there's a lot of water to go under the bridge yet in the formulation of that legislation and the setup of the Commissioner.
In terms of sustainability, which you mentioned before, what are sort of some of the big hurdles or challenges that you have ahead of you in terms of bringing your members on board with sustainability challenges?
Well, look, I'm actually really impressed with how on board the membership seems to be with the sustainability challenge. They're very passionate about trying to find ways of really making a difference to how we, for example, recycle. There's a really good understanding of the container deposit scheme proposals that are at play at the moment, and many members are really invested in making sure that the outcomes are actually effective. And I'm really impressed by that, because if we don't have a regime that's accessible to everyday New Zealanders, where they can either put their recycling products out at the curbside or take them to a deposit centre that's convenient and works for them, then we know that people won't do that. And there's been an awful lot of research internationally around what works and what doesn't work. And the members that I've spoken to and our sustainability committee seem to be right up with the play and really wanting to work constructively to make sure we get pragmatic and demonstrably effective results rather than minimum impact on their business. That doesn't seem to be what I'm hearing. They really want to know that these changes are going to make a difference and be effective, which, as I say, I'm really impressed to see.
Right. And just finally, Katherine described next year as a pivotal year for food and grocery, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. How do you think next year will play out? What are sort of the big marks on the calendar for next year?
Sure. Well, obviously it will be an election year, and we're already seeing some very interesting debates about what opposition parties will do if they get into power with big pieces of legislation. So we know that that'll continue, and that makes the environment a little bit more volatile in terms of policy making, and the timeframes can get quite crunched coming up to an election. So one thing that we'll be really focused on is working with MB to make sure that they can meet their timeframes to get that legislation through and set up the Grocery Commissioner, and make sure that the powers that are given via the Code and the Commissioner are really effective. So that's, I think, where it becomes pivotal, and there will be a lot of opportunities presented in there, and we're in a really good position to support that being effective.
Raewyn, thank you very much for talking to MBR.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.